Hi, my name is Matt Jura, and I serve as a graduate research assistant in the Office of Student Life here at Ohio State. We've covered a wide array of theories and concepts related to student development. In this final session, we'll revisit the idea of connecting theory to practice. At the end of this session, I'll ask you to reflect on what you learned and talk about how you can connect those lessons to your work. In today's lesson, we'll cover the following. First, recall lessons from previous sessions about foundations of the student affairs profession. Second, we'll talk about what it means to be a reflective practitioner and review a model for connecting theory to practice. Finally, we'll put lessons learned into action using a case study scenario. Let's begin by quickly reviewing the 6 previous sessions. In Session 1, Dr. Ann McDaniel introduced the student affairs profession. In Session 2, Dr. Deandra Mull outlined connections between research, theory, and practice in student affairs. And in our third session, Dr. Matt Couch talked about the importance of campus involvement. In Session 4, Lane Washington introduced social identities. And in Session 5, Dr. Allison Ragland continued this conversation, talking about dominant identities and the concept of privilege. In our most recent session, Dr. Kim Montodefridis talked about the differences between equity and equality. Now, there's many theories and concepts that we couldn't cover in this course, but we picked these lessons to illustrate 3 concepts: the origins and the purpose of student affairs work, the benefit of learning formal theory, and the profession's commitment to equitable environments, programs, policies, and practices. So now that you've learned some essential pieces about student affairs, what's the best way to use this knowledge? With this session, I'll talk about what it means to be a reflective practitioner and how you can connect theories to practice. Being a reflective practitioner means recognizing how every student and every situation is unique. You can't simply take the knowledge or the skills from training and repeat them for every scenario you encounter. Reflective practitioners find time to pause, take a step back, and consider the deeper story of what they're seeing around them. You're constantly seeking to improve your self-awareness, knowledge, and your ability to support all students. Reflective thinking is what stimulates this self-improvement. Educators have long recognized the importance of reflective thinking. Reflection builds self-awareness, critical thinking skills, and helps us approach each situation with the care and attention it deserves. If you don't do so already, find time each day to reflect about your work. This could be during your commute, a conversation with a coworker, even writing in a journal. But getting in the habit of intentionally working from theory to practice is a way that encourages us to be more reflective student affairs practitioners. There's many ways to build this habit, but here's one model that has been helpful to me in my career. The figure on the screen is Reasoning Kimball's model of theory to practice translation. Dr. Mull talked about this in Session 2. As you can see, there's 5 parts, and we'll go through them step by step. The process begins with a strong understanding of formal theory. Again, it's essential for student affairs professionals to have this thorough and up-to-date understanding of issues related to college students and higher education. In Sessions 1 and 2, we talked about various theory families and research agendas to be aware of. You don't have to be an expert in these, but it is a good idea to occasionally brush up on theory and be familiar with new developments. Journals from professional associations like NASPA and ACPA are a great resource, and they're published multiple times each year. Carving out time in your schedule, even once a month, to read from these journals is a great habit to begin. Or you can look into attending professional conferences. Next, we have to consider your institution's context. Theories try to be simple, accurate, and generalizable, but they're never perfect. Before applying a theory, stop and think about the campus environment. things like mission, values, culture, institutional goals, and the socio-cultural demographics of the student body. All these factors affect the way that we interpret formal theory and apply them to real life. The combination of formal theory and context is then translated to informal theory. So whereas formal theory goes through a rigorous process of testing, informal theory describes lessons from our everyday life and professional experience. We should avoid using informal theories to make broad generalizations, but our personal and professional experiences are still a really valuable component to this process. Finally, we arrive at practice. After filtering formal theory through context and informal theory, practice is where rubber meets the road. It's where we take concrete, specific action to improve the lives of students. Now, we can't forget about reflection. After we take action, it's important to reflect on our work, assess, and see if it's serving the intended purpose. We see this here with the feedback loop. Feedback could be as informal as taking a moment to pause and think about a recent interaction with a student. Or it may need to be a more structured assessment, especially when we're formally documenting the impact of our programs. Keep these steps in mind. We'll come back to this model in just a moment. Now, because the title of this course is Connecting Student Development Theory to Practice, we're going to practice putting these lessons into action using a case study scenario. In a moment, I'll read the prompt and then role model my own response. That way, you can see what we're expecting you to do in your reflection assignment after this video. Here's your case study prompt. Imagine for a moment you work for the Division of Student Affairs at Midwest State University, a fictional school that we're creating for this activity. Midwest State is a public, mid-sized institution located in a rural community. In its mission statement, Midwest State highlights a commitment to providing an inclusive educational community where all students are able to achieve their potential and learn how to use their education for the greater good. Furthermore, the institution prides itself on maintaining positive relationships with residents who live in the neighborhoods around campus, many of whom work at the school in a variety of positions. Approximately 30% of students are eligible for Pell Grants, meaning these students have a demonstrated financial need. The student body is predominantly white, and 35% identify as students of color. Over the past 10 years, Midwest State has seen a dramatic increase in international students. And finally, roughly a quarter of students commute to school each day. Half are involved in at least one student organization, and 70% of students either work part-time or are looking to work part-time while attending school. Last year, recognizing that the campus is located in a food desert, meaning that there are few options to purchase affordable, fresh food near campus, Midwest State decided to sponsor a farmer's market. There are 3 primary goals associated with this program. 1, provide more access to healthy food options. 2, strengthen the sense of community on and around campus. And 3, involve students in the development and operation of the market. You have been appointed to the committee, charged with developing and managing this new program. At this point, the committee has your overall budget, and you know the program will operate once a month. But all other details are yet to be decided. This means that you have a unique opportunity to talk about details like time, date, location, vendors, programming options, marketing, staffing, and various other features. You have many good ideas and also many questions. Fortunately, the lessons learned in this course will help structure your thinking. In preparation for your first meeting with the committee, answer the following prompts. What is one goal you'd like the farmers market to achieve? What is a relevant theory, value, or concept that connects to this goal? What institutional factors are important to consider? And how does your knowledge of theory, context, and professional experience translate to practice in the context of this scenario. Now, this is a lot of information to consider. So let's go back to the model from earlier and see how it applies to the case study. We need to focus on one specific goal for the program. Remember, there's 3. But we'll focus on the third goal, how to get students involved in the farmers market. Now that we have our goal in mind, let's turn to the model to help us operationalize this goal. As we said throughout the course, a strong understanding of theory is foundational for student affairs professionals. Since we're focusing on the goal about getting students involved, it makes a lot of sense to look at Aston's theory of student involvement. As we learned earlier, student involvement leads to many positive outcomes for students from many different identities and backgrounds. Next, we want to consider the institution context. Factors like mission, values, socio-demographic features of the student body, these not only inform our goals, but they also provide guidance on how they can be achieved. From what we know about Midwest State, we know that there's a healthy culture of student involvement on campus with some room for improvement. We also know that a large percentage of students have a demonstrated financial need, and that many students work part-time while they're attending school. On-campus employment is a great example of student involvement, so we might consider some paid opportunities for students to get involved, along with volunteer positions. Maybe we can create a series of paid internships, asking students to help with operations, vendor relations, marketing, volunteer management, and so on. Incorporating informal theory means lessons learned through personal and professional experience. So with the idea for paid internships, we might consider just how much responsibility to give to each position, along with how many hours a week a student can manage on top of their full-time class schedule. Finally, we put the idea into practice. And as we do, we'll want to collect feedback as the program gets up and running to determine how well it's fulfilling its goals. This is where our reflective practice comes into play, as well as more formal feedback such as assessment. Now that we've walked through one example together, it's your turn to apply theory to practice. In the learning check that follows this video, you'll have a chance to pick a theory or concept from this course and apply it to the same case study scenario at Midwest State University. Be creative. You can take this assignment in many directions. The sessions in this course only scratch the surface of student affairs research and practice. Nevertheless, they offer a strong introduction to the profession because it's important to ground our work in relevant values and scholarship. We hope you feel inspired to continue learning about student affairs following the conclusion of this course. Supplemental materials for this session offer a few suggestions regarding how you may do so. Whatever brought you to this course, or the goals you set for yourself as a learner, we hope you found value in this course. We welcome any feedback you have regarding topics you'd like to learn more about or how we can improve this resource. On behalf of everyone in the Office of Student Life at The Ohio State University, thank you for participating.